to never take anything for granted. There's so many opportunities at IVC. You guys don't know how privileged you are and how many amazing resources are at IVC. Take advantage of every single one of them. So the first resource is the counselors. They're amazing. Make sure you go to them. I came in summer of my first year, talk to the career counselor, talk to the honors program counselor, have them laid out a plan for me, and I followed it from day one. So make sure you go into the counselors with anything you need from college stuff to health and wellness. They have you covered. So make sure you use those resources that are available. I was part of the honors program, and I can't say how amazing that program is. If you're not part of it yet, make sure you talk to the director now is Emily Liu. She's an amazing professor. You can talk to the assistant, Shake. She'll be able to help you out. Make sure you're a part of the honors program. All you need is 5 classes, and then you're set to go, and gives you a big, big boost on your transcript and on your resume in order to get into those amazing schools. And I think the last thing is to find a club and association that best fits you and best fits your interests. I was interested in business, so it made sense that I was part of the Business Leader Society. I was part of the Financial Finesse Club. I did this. I joined clubs that were interesting to me, and what that did is it resonated on my transcript and on my resume and on my essays. So make sure you're part of clubs and organizations that you're actually interested in. Don't do it for the resume boost. Don't do it for the application. Do it because you enjoy it, and it will all pay off in the long run. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you covered a lot of really important bases there. Jewel, would you like to add on and talk us a little bit through your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel really just went through like all of them. When I started, I also went to the counselors. I really just like talked to them. I was like, I really have no idea what I'm doing. Like, please help me out. And they were super helpful, especially if you're in the honors program. The honors counselors are super helpful because they do this like for their job. They know how to get students to like the schools that they want to go to. So they laid it all out for me. And I really just followed that for like my 2 years there. And then same thing as what Daniel said, like joining the honors program was a great experience because there's programs like TAG and TAP for UCLA that really help increase your chances of getting into the UC schools. And then what he brought up about the clubs as well, definitely just get yourself involved in school. I know it might be like kind of hard right now, but like definitely still try to like attend those Zoom meetings and like learn more about the clubs at IVC because that's how you'll build a lot of friendships as well. So I feel like that just really helps with just getting accustomed to IVC and then helping you transfer in the end.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think the fact that you guys both hit on the honors program for first year students, if you haven't joined yet, just definitely look out for that because that can dramatically boost your chances of getting into the UC that you dream of. It also connects you with programs like H2H, TAG, and TAP, as Julia Daniel mentioned. So definitely check that out. So thank you so much. Our second question is, what were some of your favorite or maybe most useful classes that you took at IVC? So if you could go back and change up your schedule of classes, right? Sometimes as second year students, we all wish we could do that. So which ones would you take? Which ones maybe you take earlier or not take at all? So Kayla, would you like to start us off?
Sorry, yeah. I guess it just all like depends on your own major. And I guess for me personally, I guess I found out that after applying that I didn't need to take multivariable calculus. But again, that all depends on your major. If you're trying to apply for multiple majors, then you definitely want to take like as many classes as possible that overlaps with those majors, just to give yourself more options. But I guess like in terms of like scheduling, I was really fortunate to have had my schedule done really accurately and well by like I guess everyone's mentioning the honors the honors program, and the honors program counselors are really useful. And I remember the counselor Michelle, she really helped with building my schedule and just helped me like get through IVC really efficiently and like just yeah, making use of my resources.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Michelle is amazing. So that's another great resource, right? Is having those honors program exclusive counselors as well there. Carissa, would you like to talk a little bit about the classes you took and that were most useful for your major?
So, I think obviously I the major prep courses like engineering were definitely helpful, but what I enjoyed the most were actually the non-engineering, non-STEM because it just brought so much more to my plate and like my perspective. So even one of my favorite classes was writing 2H, and not because I love writing so much, but because of the professor and getting into different classes, especially because you're going to need to fulfill your IGETC and your Gen Eds. When you get into those different classes, you learn so much things, yes, because of the subject, but more so because of the professors. So my favorite classes were writing, a lot of the arts classes I took, like I took Japanese for a language requirement, which I was like not super enthusiastic at first, but it definitely ended up changing my mind. So just classes from all different subjects, basically.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have a little bit of a mix, right? And to always be able to take a break a little bit from those major classes. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. Daniel, would you like to round us off here and just talk about maybe some of your favorite classes or maybe some of the most useful classes that you took at IVC?
All right. So, by the show of hands, how many of you are going down the business track? You can just raise your hand on the little emoticon thing. Okay. Yeah. Make sure you take Excel. That's the most useful class I took at IVC. By far, even if you're not going into business, you need to know Excel for any job you're going to be a part of. So take that while you're at IVC. It costs $59 per credit, a lot cheaper than a Cal. And I think rather than talking about like my business courses, which were all very useful, and especially I needed to take them for my major, I think the most fun I've ever had was taking classes outside of my major. So I took music. I took it for my honors requirement. So I took music with Tressler, and I fell in love with classical music because of that class. And it was an avenue for me to take a break from learning about econ and math and calculus, and I just enjoyed my time there. In that class, I think communications is a great class as well. If you're in an honors program, they offer communications honors. That class was just amazing, and the professors are fantastic. And I have to give a shout out to Professor Russo, took his management class, Intro to Business. So that was a useful class as well, and I recommend everyone to take that class, even if you're not looking to go into business, because it's a useful skill to have to understand how businesses work and the ins and outs of taxes, whatever we learn in that class. I think Russo can go into depth on that, but make sure you are taking classes that aren't part of your major because you want to be well-rounded.
Yeah, that's a great point. It sounds like everyone really enjoyed the classes outside of their major, right? So definitely make sure you diversify your schedule, right? So we talked a little bit about classes, but now we want to talk a little bit about the extracurriculars. So I'm sure a lot of you were very involved on campus. Jewel, I would like to ask you this question. What are some of the key opportunities and leadership roles you took on while at IVC?
Yeah, so I guess this goes back to like the honors program, but I was super involved with the honors program, just with like one of my roles was like peer mentor, and then I kind of like diverged into like the research team on the honors program, like panel. So I feel like that just the honors community is such a great like organization to be part of. Like I met so many people there and so many friends. So one of my roles was to kind of just help when I was in my second year, help first years kind of get used to IVC and what the honors program is about. So we would like mentor and like just any questions that people had about like classes, like what to take, what they should be doing. Um, that's what we did. And then I also did a lot about research. So listening to people's presentations for the HTCC research conference, just giving feedback and then giving them advice about how they could improve their presentations or like what they should focus on for that conference. So that was a big thing I did at IVC. yeah, with the honors program.
Awesome. Yeah. Definitely, guys, get involved. And, if you're in your first year, just as an honors program, student or member, definitely look into those leadership roles later on, right? Because you can clearly reap a lot of benefits from it. David, would you like to answer this question as well and talk about some of the resources or leadership roles that you really took advantage of?
Yeah, so while I was IVC, I didn't really have a chance because of my major to take a whole lot of extracurriculars. I was able to take some extracurricular classes within engineering and music and stuff. Um, for leadership roles, I didn't really have a leadership role at IVC because I wasn't super involved my first couple of years. But now that I'm on campus here at UCI, I can tell you that now I'm part of the engineering ambassadors team for engineering. Um, and that gives you a lot of connections. So I would recommend, I wish I would have done this in community college, of joining a club or an extracurricular that allows me to have some sort of leadership position or some sort of mentorship position, because oftentimes that has to be accompanied by some of the faculty from the university or the college. And getting to know the professors and getting to know people who work at the university is a great way to eventually have more connections. And I've had a professor, name was Professor Sims for physics. He was probably my top three favorite professors at IVC. He ended up writing me a letter of recommendation, and that ends up looking pretty good coming from someone who worked at NASA for 12 years. So getting to know your faculty is a great way to increase your experience and your networking.
That's a really great point. Especially at IVC, we have a lot of industry professionals, right? So they might not be as involved in research, but they're doing things directly in industry that could help you out in your career. So that's definitely an awesome tip. Is to take advantage of your resources there right at IVC. So the next question is, we talked about your involvement, but what are some key activities or resources that maybe you didn't take advantage of as much, but you wish you did? So Carissa, do you want to start us off?
So for me, it would be clubs. I was in a couple, but because of my major and like other things, like even honors program that I'm trying to fulfill and like pack in within a couple years or a couple, like 3 years, I didn't get to do as many club activities. But kind of going off what David was saying, it's because you get to know people, you get to just get involved, you get to know different professors, especially if it's for your major. It's really advantageous and helpful. So I was a part of the ASEC, which is Applied Science and Engineering Club, and also the 3D printing. I put more time into one club over the other versus either equal parts, and just giving it my all, participating. And not only does it give you a sense of community, it also, again, like helps with networking, and you get to know the professors. You can get letter of recommendations, or you can just get to know them and ask them maybe personal questions regarding your major and just like what is out there in the industry. So I wish I was more involved with the clubs, or it doesn't even have to be major related, just any clubs, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And, aside from connection, it also helps build that community of students that can be a little bit hard, especially during COVID and just in general at a community college, right? So that's definitely a great tip. Kayla, would you like to continue forth and maybe talk a little bit about some things you wish you did at community college?
So for me, I was in ASG for a little bit. Eventually ended up quitting just because of like the time commitment. But I guess like if I could take more time at community college, then it would have been nice to continue in ASG, because I could tell that the people in there were really close, and like that's like one major way that people make friends in community college, like through clubs, not necessarily through classes. I guess like it's also, I guess this isn't exactly at IVC, but another way that I made friends was through like outside work. I worked part-time during my time at IVC, and through that I had like a really solid friend group that I still talk to now. So I guess like friends don't have to come just from school, which is what kind of people do in high school, but they can come from outside sources as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a really good point. Also, ASG, it's now called ASIVC, but yeah, I think the fact that it's so many people that are all collaborating on different initiatives on campus, you're bound to, find friends one way or another. So, it's definitely a great way to once again find the people that you actually gravitate toward, right? And then have those connections continuing on once you transfer to your 4 year. Yeah. So the last question I have before I pass it on to Maya is, what do you think, if you were to look at your application critically, was the main reason that you were admitted to your university? So what were some key strengths or skills that you believe set you apart from others and that you really showed off on your application? So Daniel, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I can only speak for like myself because I'm a business student, but one thing that Haas was really looking at is like their four pillars. So their four pillars is like question the status quo, beyond yourself, student always, confidence over attitude. And so what I did with my essays is I try to make sure I incorporate each of those pillars into, into my work, into my essay. And so I made it so that the school was able to see that the work I was doing outside of school and at IVC translates to what they're looking for in terms of an applicant. I think for myself as well, I spent most of my time at IVC working. So I was, I was working like 30 hours a week at my job. And I think that's something that they value because, a lot of the times community college students are, working full-time or part-time, supporting a family or saving up in order to go to a university. So if you have some sort of outside experience, outside work, I think that really helps. Additionally, I started a business when I was in my sophomore year at IVC, and they like that leadership experience. They like that initiative that you take. They like the responsibility that you have if you're running your own business, and I think it just makes you stand out from the rest of the applicants. A lot of the times, people ask me like, "What is your GPA?" or "What classes did you take?" And I kind of try to diverge from that conversation, and I try to tell them that it's more about the quality of a person you are and like what you stand for, like what work you've done in order to prove yourself. And I think that's ultimately most important. So I like to just not talk about my grades. I don't like to talk about the classes, like how I succeeded at IVC. It's more importantly, it's like what I did to become a better student, to become a better person, and also contribute to my community at IVC, in Irvine, and abroad. So.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, as you said, right, when it comes to personal insight questions or just when you're, completing your application, it's really about the story you have. And a lot of the time, that story is not just the classes you take, right? It's not just what you do at IVC, it's beyond that. So I definitely think that's a really important takeaway for our students is make sure that there's a narrative there and you want to make sure that you accent it. And it's not only going to be what you have on paper. It should be, you as a person and your character.
Yeah, because they know what classes you're going to take, right? They know if you're going to go into business, you have to take econ, accounting, blah, blah, blah. If you're going into Berkeley, you have a good GPA already. They don't really care about that. The grades in the classes are just a benchmark in order to weed people out. What's going to make you stand out is your story. So for the freshmen out there right now, start thinking about like what type of student you want to be, and take proactive steps in order to join a club, join an organization, work part-time, do research, do something that creates your story. And that's what I was talking to Mia about. It's very important to craft your story early on and then just go with it.
Right. Yeah. Again, the GPA is just a filter, right? You have to have more to your story beyond that to really set you apart. Definitely. David, would you like to answer this question as well? So, if you were to look at your application critically, what was it that really, made you a standout candidate? Oh, David, yeah, this question is for you. No worries.
I'm so sorry. I had to go calm down my dog. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Oh, yeah. So if you were to, take a look at your application and try to think of the admissions committee point of view, what do you think was the main reason you were admitted to UCI? So what were some of the key strengths you had that you think really set you apart as a student?
Okay. I think that what set me apart as a student was actually tended to be more towards the GPA side and towards more of the academic performance. I think it depends a lot on what your major is or what school you're going to go into if you're university. Like if you're going to go as an engineering major, and they see that you got like B's in writing, that doesn't really apply. But for engineering, I did pretty well at the community college. I was also in extracurriculars, and I took extra classes that weren't required to transfer, which also helps your case a lot in that they know that you're going to be able to finish in a certain amount of time. Showing interest in your major, not just in school, but outside of school, is really difficult sometimes, depending on your major. For example, like in my case, engineering, it's very difficult to show that you're interested outside of taking classes, because everything you do is pretty much going to be in a club for the school, unless you have enough funding to start a club yourself, which is very unlikely. So I think that depending on your major is what you should focus on, but you should definitely make sure that your grades are always on top. You're making sure that your academic performance comes first, but also show that it's not just this is what I can do academically. Show what you can do outside of the classroom. Join clubs, show initiative, show leadership positions. That usually tends to help a lot, especially in the UC system. They tend to value leadership positions a lot more than at the Cal States or private universities that have different criteria.
Right. And it's what the second personal insight question, right? Is what are your leadership experiences? So
Exactly.
yeah, it's definitely a great point. And also the fact is, we have different majors here from our attendees. And if you're an engineering major, you need to focus on getting those classes out of the way. There's so many prerequisites. So again, depending on major, your priorities definitely will shift. All right. Well, this was awesome. I'm going to pass it off to Maya, and thank you guys.
So let's dive into the next question. Personal insight questions are probably on every transfer student's minds right now. So what are some of the examples of the topics you wrote about and like what did you convey your correct through the essays? Carissa, would you like to begin?
So an example of one of the questions that I answered was talking about a hard moment that in your life, or like an obstacle that you've overcome, and you get a very limited amount of words, and more often than not you tend to write more than the limit. But the important thing for me, I guess specifically for that question, was not focusing on the obstacle or not focusing on how hard it was, but more focusing on the outcome, how you overcame it, and how you further applied that to your life. Because they're looking at your personal insight questions and they're going to see like, oh, is this person more than a number, more than a grade? Of course you are, but you have to implement that in a way where you can show them. And for me, personal insight questions probably shown more than my grades. And I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on your GPA or anything, but that's what really differentiates like student A with 4.0 GPA and student B with like 3.99 or another 4.0 GPA. So it's important focusing on what they're looking for, and usually they are looking for is a well-rounded, balanced candidate, and just somebody that will make their campus or their school better, and someone that they are willing to like give a shot at their university or school, Cal State. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's very important to give like great examples and like be able to talk about it through the essays. Kayla, would you like to add more about what you wrote?
So I completely agree. It's like through the essays, you want to show like your own character and also like your interest or attachment towards like your specific major. Like why, like one of the required questions is, why do you want to major in this? And what have you done to prepare for that major? So for me personally, I wrote a lot about psychobiology because that's why I applied to for some schools. And in that one, I talked a lot about like mental illness and how that affects like a lot of people, and how I'm interested in like learning more about that and like why that happens basically. And so basically you just want to show like how you are interested basically in your major and what you're going to do with it and like what goals you have.
Great, thank you, Kayla. Let's dive into the next question. So it's your first day at your university. What resources did you take advantage of right away at your 4 years institution? What would you recommend as the first steps for transfer students to take once you're admitted to your university? It could be like club enrollments, like looking for internship opportunities, heading for professor's office hours, etc. David, would you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, sure. If you're going to go into something that's STEM related, especially engineering or something similar, which is what I can give my experience on, the best thing to do right away at your university is go to office hours and get to know your professor. You're going to be in a class with, I have classes with 150 to 200, 250 students. So the professor is not going to know every single one of you. But if you go to his office hours after like week 1 or week 2, when people stop coming as often, that's when you can get some time alone with the professor or ask him a question about anything. He'll start getting to know you. Um, I think a major point, if for engineering at least, is joining projects on campus. I'm planning next. I didn't want to do it this quarter because I wanted to, get the hang of the quarter system because it goes by much faster than the semester system. So I wanted to wait off a quarter, but I've already been. I know some people in 2 projects that are asking me to join in internal combustion racing, and in Baja racing. So getting to know other people in your classes, it might be difficult right now because of quarantine and COVID, but I think that trying to get to know other students is a great idea because then you can work together, you can study together. And oftentimes that ends up being extremely helpful because sometimes you might know people that have already taken this class. Like I know somebody who this is his second time taking it because he didn't do so well the first time. But then he already knows pretty much the ins and outs of the class and how this professor works, how this class works. So that ends up being a humongous resource, as well as trying to get to, for at least for resources on campus. The tutoring center is always great. I personally haven't been to the tutoring center, but I have other friends that have already been to the tutoring center. They said that it helped, especially the ones that haven't finished their math series or they still have 1 class left to finish their GEs, or in a class that's not of their major, especially there's like a stereotype that engineers can't really write very well or that we're illiterate, which is somewhat true. It's kind of difficult for us to write a 4-5 page essay on something that we might not be super interested in. So I think that the writing center is a great way to go and get help on stuff that you don't know about, especially if it's not related to your major.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I think it can be really helpful if you know the upperclassmen for your major who already took your class and like could help you out on it. Also, Daniel, I know you talked about recruitment and like internship and stuff. Would you like to elaborate more about what you started doing right away?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say that like imposter syndrome is real. I don't know if my fellow transfers can agree. I see a couple nodding heads. So it's something that you will all have to overcome early on, and it's better to just face it up front, acknowledge that you're new to the school, and just keep going. So whatever I was doing at IVC, I did not change. So right off the bat, I went to office hours. I got to know people. I networked. I joined the student like business school association, the government. I did all that, and it didn't stop me. But throughout the summer, it was really difficult because what we see at Berkeley, especially with the business program, is that all the students that are continuing, they have a leg up on you. They know the ins and outs of recruiting. They start thinking about recruiting in their freshman year, sophomore year of college. Well, we transfer students are mainly focused on transferring in and doing other activities. Like I was working at the time, I didn't even know about recruiting, so it hit me really, really hard. Luckily, at Haas, we have a great program over summer where you can take 2 courses. It's like an 8-week long session, and you learn all about recruiting and internships and how to network and how to interview. But if I was to take a step back and do it all over again, I will start thinking about internships and recruiting day 1 of IVC. So one thing you can do now for everyone that's still at IVC is start thinking about your elevator pitches, start thinking about what you want to do when you get out of college so that you know what you want to recruit for. Start networking on LinkedIn. Make sure every single person here has a LinkedIn account, is connecting to all the people at IVC, connecting to all the people at UCI, UCLA, whatever school you want to go into. But start thinking about that early on, because I'm seeing with my peers that are transferring as well, that transferred into Haas, they are lagging behind, right? They don't feel like they're gonna be able to get those internships. But if they started thinking about it earlier, they would have been a lot more prepared. So I'm just saying this up front because if you guys end up going to Haas and end up doing the business route, it's going to be a punch to the face, but make sure you're ready to go. You're guarded up and you're going to be successful. So start thinking about those internships early on, and make sure you understand where you want to go into. That's going to help, like what career, what industry. But it's always okay to not know. I still don't know yet.
Thank you, Daniel. Jewel, is there something you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like in terms of like once you transfer, definitely go to professor's office hours, like David said. And then what Daniel brought up about imposter syndrome, like that's a huge thing because I joined like a Discord with a bunch of other transfers at UCLA. So we were literally talking about this the other day because we had like our first midterm, and like at a UC, like the scores are going to be a lot lower than you're used to at like a community college. So definitely, definitely just like make those connections and make those friends. Like don't be afraid to just put yourself out there and like meet new people, because those people will help you out. Like helping transfers is the best because you all know, like you've all been through it and you all understand the struggle. So you guys working all together is like going to be so much better than you trying to struggle through it yourself. So I guess my big thing would just be to meet people, because then you can study together, like help each other look for internships, or like if you guys are in the same career path. That's usually very, very, yeah, that's usually very common because a lot of people in the same majors will be taking the same classes. So usually they'll be trying to go into the same career path. So just helping each other out is like honestly what you can do to survive.
Great advice, Jewel. Yeah, it's important to get into those Discord servers for each classes. And yeah, so let's dive into the next question. So why did you choose the university that you transferred to? What were the key factors that guided your decision? Example, like program consideration, student life, recruitment, sense of community, etc. And what do you enjoy most about your current university? Feel free to like brag about your college at this point and like tell students why they should apply to the university. So Kayla, can we start with you?
So I go to UC San Diego, and UC San Diego is known largely for their STEM programs. And as a STEM major myself, that was definitely a major drawing point to the school for me, especially as someone who's in the biological sciences. I know there's a lot of research opportunities. Granted, right now it's COVID, so can't really do that. But there are a lot of research opportunities, and I noticed a lot of biotech companies around the school too. So that's really useful for me as a STEM major. I guess so far what I've really liked about the school is the classes themselves and the professors. They just seem like really knowledgeable, and granted, classes are 200, 300, 400 students. But somehow like I still feel like, I don't know, in a way, I just like how the teaching is in a way. I like the quarter system, which is kind of odd because everyone's talking about how like the quarter system is so fast, right? And it definitely can be fast, but I think personally I like it. I don't know.
Thank you, Kayla. Carissa, can I get your opinion about it?
Yeah, so for me, UCI was my top list, not so much because I knew a bunch of like the research and project opportunities. It was more like financial and distance and other things. But now being a first transfer year, third year student, the first thing that I got as soon as you get your UCI Gmail email is I got not dumped, but I got a huge load of just emails about all different kinds of research, all different types of projects. And they give you so many opportunities for internships. And I've never even heard of these companies, or like some like weird STEM name that I can't even think of, but it's not overwhelming, but there's just so many different opportunities for research internships and like senior projects. And on top of that, it's pretty flexible, I would say. Like there's a senior project that, you know, seniors have to take, but there are some classes, like legitimate classes, that can help give you credit for senior project, but it's also like a class at the same time. So it can almost give you a boost or a leverage before senior project, or maybe you can do more projects and more hands-on experiences for like the price of one. So just how flexible and how many different opportunities for all three is amazing. And I go to UCI, by the way, but yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing how you can get like lots of internship opportunities and stuff once you get into the university. Daniel, can I get your input?
Yeah, first of all, go Bears. Woo. Yeah, so I go to Berkeley. It was a difficult decision to make just because I wanted to go to UCI, I want to go to UCLA. You know, it was just a back and forth, back and forth. But ultimately, and this is for business, right? I'm only speaking for business here, but you know, we're the best at econ and you know, a lot of different majors, but I'm just joking. So for business especially, it was a no-brainer after I just took some time to look at the program. Haas is like number 3 in the nation for business undergrad. The networking, the connections that you're going to make is top notch. And so it was really easy for me to decide to go to Berkeley just because of the fact that I got admitted into Haas, which is very difficult to do even for the continuing students, because Haas is it's a 2-year program. So the continuing students are also fighting for the spot. And so if you are a transfer student that gets into Haas, it's it's a big accomplishment, right? There's only about 300 students that get into Haas each year, and 200 of them are from continuing class and 100 are transfers. So it feels like you accomplish a lot, right? So at Haas especially, what I love about Haas is that you're getting a plethora of different business courses. So I'm taking marketing, I'm taking analytics, I'm taking finance, and you get to decide what you really want to do in business. Now, I'm going to bring in some negatives about Haas because it's very important to consider this if you're going to be going to business. Berkeley is a very, very tough school. The school suffers from, you know, rigorous classes. The curves are insane to the point where you're going to be competing against your classmates, and that can stir up some animosity and very competitive environment. So you got to consider that going in. But that's part of the journey that you're going into Berkeley, right? You're going there to grind. I think Catherine's here. She can attest to this. Berkeley suffers from depression. You know, a lot of students are ultimately very sad. It's gloomy, but everyone at that school is a champion, right? Everyone there is thinking outside the box, questioning the status quo, and they're there to ultimately change the world. So for me, Berkeley was an easy choice, even though, you know, it was actually not the school I wanted to go to at first. It was an easy choice after I kind of looked deeper into the program, looked into the benefits, and look into you know, the location. It feels nice to get out of Irvine finally after like 10 years. So I'm happy that I'm here. And if you have any questions about Haas specifically, I'd love to connect with you and answer more questions. But Berkeley is a great school. I can't thank them enough for this opportunity.
Great, thank you. David, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up to what Carissa was saying about UC Irvine. Definitely the reason I joined UC Irvine was because of the projects and the research. As you know, UCs are very heavily research based, especially for projects. UCI for MAE specifically has about 24 projects that you can take, and you can not just have your major, but also if you're a mechanical engineer, you can have specializations. You can have up to 2 pretty much, or more if you wanted to take extra classes. One of them is called Engineering 188, which is called Industry Project. So what you do is you sign up for the class, and then a professor assigns a company to work with you that you're going to work for 10 weeks. So that company is going to assign you a project that will be due in 10 weeks, which is the course of a quarter. So that's one of the main reasons I joined UCI, is because of the research opportunities and the project opportunities you can have, as well as having a lot of experience with faculty that knows what they're doing and has doctorates in their area.
Thank you, David. Yeah, can you add about the pros and cons of UCLA? too?
Yeah, I ended up choosing UCLA because I don't know, I just love UCLA and also number one public university. So, but UCLA is great because I feel like just again, like all the UCs have like a great support system and a lot of resources. I mean, for me, like I feel like they have a really strong like transfer community. So I feel like fitting in wasn't really like a struggle or anything because I've met so many people who are transfers and also they have people that help guide you through like adjusting to UCLA as a transfer. Um, I mean, I haven't been on campus yet, so I don't really like know, but like I guess cons would be like, I mean, if you don't like big classes, I mean, it goes for like all the UCs. There are big classes, but I personally prefer them because it's like it's just like lecture hall style, and then it's a lot of like independent learning, and then you kind of like make sure that you have to manage your own schedule, and then you go. It's like your responsibility to go ask the professor if you have questions or anything like that. So I feel like it's more like it's fast paced and stuff, but I also like the whole independent like aspect of it where you're in charge of your own schedule and you're studying because you want to study.
Thank you so much, everyone, for answering. So last question, like let's dive into it. What was your experience with applying for internships or jobs in your field as a community college transfer student? How did you find recruitment resources or get employers' attention while at IVC? Jewel, can you go again?
Sure. Oh wait, okay. So while at IVC, so I want to go into optometry. So for me, while I was at IVC, I actually found my optometry job through a class. It was counseling. It was an honors class. It was counseling 6H. And one of the assignments was to do an informational interview with someone in the profession that you want to go into. So I was just searching like optometry offices around IVC and I found Flow Optometry, which is where I work now still. But I did an interview with the doctor there. Then I went with them to Mexico to help out a lot of people there who don't have access to eye care. Just like eye care and glasses in general. So that was a really amazing experience. And then from there, I just kept in touch with them and built a relationship with them. And then eventually I started interning there and then that turned into like a job. And so now I'm there, like I still go every Saturday since classes are online and I'm still at home. So I feel like just kind of reaching out, like you can literally find an internship or a job by luck or just like when you least expect it. But you definitely want to like get out there and just reach out to people because they don't know that you're trying to find an internship or a job. So just reach out to as many resources that you can. Take classes that like counseling 6H that let you really think about like what you want to do in your future and then kind of go from there, I guess.
Thank you, Joel. That sounds like a great experience at Mexico. So David, would you like to share us about your experience?
Yeah, definitely. So at the UCs, a lot of stuff you can do. There's a lot of internship opportunities from the university that are being offered, but you can also do internship outside of the university on your own as well. Oftentimes, the UC system has a lot of opportunities from companies for students to work throughout the year and especially during the summer. But normally during the summer is when most people want to apply and do it. So I would recommend not just relying on what the university can offer, but also relying on what you yourself can look for. Google, Handshake, and LinkedIn are a great way to apply for these things. Handshake is similar to LinkedIn, except it's more specifically used in universities for internships. But what you can do to make yourself stand out more is to build up your resume as well. Like take certain classes or be involved in certain things that you can add to a resume list as I have this experience, I have that experience. A huge benefit that you have as a community college student is the fact that you can get associate's degrees. A lot of students at major universities don't have access to or have the ability to have an associate's degrees. I know that for the ones that came from IVC to UCI through the engineering academy, we were able to receive, I think, 4 or 5 I believe some people were able to get 6 if they took a couple extra arts classes. So I have 6 associate's degrees. So like you can add that type of stuff to a resume, or you can say I was involved in this class, or I was involved in this club, and have this leadership experience, as well as outside experience like volunteer work. And it would be even better if it relates to your major or your area of study.
Thank you. That's a lot of associate degrees. Yeah, so on the final note, Daniel, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, so in terms of internships, I think that David said it perfectly. You know, the school has a plethora of opportunities for you. I think that rather than speaking on like how I got my internship or what you can do to like, you know, look for those internships, I want to just highlight the fact that another problem, especially at business schools, is that a lot of the students actually hide the fact that they're transfers. I know one of the first things I did when I got into Haas, when I was applying for investment banking, is I expunged the community college out of my resume and just wrote that I was at Berkeley for 4 years. And that's a trick that people try to use in order to get through the system, because for business and these like these top level firms, they sometimes are against transfers and they're very biased. So they will kind of weed out all the transfers because they feel like they're not good enough. But what I ended up doing is, after I learned that that's not honest, that's not ethical, I actually put it back on my resume and I just rolled with it. And the first thing I did when I got into the interviews, I interviewed at PwC, at Ernst & Young, at all these different firms. And the first thing I said to them was that I'm a proud transfer student. And I saw the smile on their face. They lit up with joy, and they were really actually surprised to hear that coming from a student, because you guys need to realize that everyone is unique, and especially you transfer students, you guys have an amazing story to tell. And so don't be afraid to show it off. So that's one thing I want to kind of end this meeting on, is that you guys are all here for a reason. You know, your story is your own, and make sure you're telling it nicely. No, you're telling it very brightly to them, and you use that as leverage, right? Because ultimately you guys are going to be transferring to these amazing schools. You guys work so hard, and you guys are there for a reason. And ultimately, if you go into an interview with that type of mindset and that excitement, you're going to do great and you'll get the job. So
Thank you, Daniel. That was an amazing response. And yeah, so I think,
Can I pipe in and ask a couple of questions or say a quick comment?
sure.
John Russo can't go without saying something, so I apologize. So just very quickly, first to Daniel's last point, you know, many times there's negative connotations about community college students. You guys are a testament to there are awesome community college students out there, and be proud of showing that, and nothing to be ashamed over that I'm not as good as, because I'll tell you what, there's, better community college students. You guys are smarter because you just saved your parents tens of thousands of dollars in the first 2 years, right? And got so much experience out of going to community college. So definitely be proud of that. The other thing I kind of wanted to ask, maybe if a couple of you, and Daniel mentioned this too, he didn't get to go to his first choice, but how much, other than, the curriculum and the transfer, the internships, how much did the school surroundings, the weather, the location, how much of that played a part in some of your decisions in terms of where to go to school? And do you think it should play a big part? I'll just kind of open it up to maybe a couple of you that may want to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can comment on that, because Berkeley is a wild school, right? We're known for a lot of crazy things. And I kind of took Berkeley off the list early on just because of what the rumors I've heard about Berkeley, especially being a little bit more on the right-leaning side, right? But ultimately, I actually decided to go to Berkeley just because of that fact, because I'm here at college, I'm here to learn, I'm here to experience so many different opinions and diversities of thoughts. And for me, that was an easy choice, because why would I want to go to a safe school like maybe UCI? I was there at home, but I wanted to expand myself and find a new opportunity for me, go out of my comfort zone. So, for me, it was the fact that I wanted a new experience for myself. And I feel like every single UC school, from UCI to UC San Diego, is amazing, but you have to make sure you find a school that you will be tested in, right? A school that you feel like you can make a difference in, and a school that will ultimately make you a better person after you get out from, from after those 4 years. So for me, that was Berkeley. I'm still waiting to see if that was the right choice, but sitting here now, I'm so glad that I decided to go here, just because every single day I'm challenged. I'm challenged in so many different areas. So yeah. And I love UCI. My best friend Mo goes to UCI. UCI is an amazing, amazing school. And if you're considering business, guys, it's top notch. So for sure. All the love to Carissa and David. You guys are awesome.